there guys, it's HelloJapan, and I'm going to do something different. Now, this may be kind of jarring. I normally don't ever record video of any kind. I'm more traditionally just a Let's Player streamer kind of person, but I felt that this would be kind of cool to try and do. Now, let me know what you think. We could do more of these in the future if I get more parts or whatever, but the reason I'm doing this today is because I got two new computer parts for the system here. This is the streaming and the gaming rig. Now, to kind of give you a rundown, you'll see it in a second. To give you a rundown of what the system has in it right now, it has a, for the CPU, I'm just going to run over CPU and GPU because the other stuff is more generic than anything. The CPU I'm running is an AMD FX-9350, which is a fantastic CPU by all accounts. But for the new Fallout 4, it has a recommendation of a 9590, and that's what I'm upgrading to. As well, I also have a GeForce GTX 780, which is more than plenty to run most modern games on very, very good settings. So we're going to take a look inside the system as well as show me actually replacing some of these. Now, this may be kind of boring to those of you who aren't computer people, which I completely get. It's perfectly fine if you don't want to watch it. I'm not going to be offended in the slightest. But yeah, to kind of give you a quick look at what we're actually installing, right here we have the AMD FX-9590, a fantastic processor here. It's actually an 8-core, 4 physical cores and then 8 logical cores, running at a max turbo clock, which is like a boost clock. If you plan on running it any faster than this boost clock, you may need some crazy good cooling system in your computer. But it actually has a max turbo clock of 5 gigahertz, which is awesome, and a base of 4.7. To give you an idea, the CPU I have right now, it's basically the same chipset on the CPU itself, but it's running at 4 gigahertz with those 8 cores as well, same 4 physical and 4 logical. But it's not necessarily an incredible, noticeable leap. You will see some improvement in frames when you're playing certain games, as well as rendering times should be a little bit better. But I have CUDA on my graphics card, so I don't really have to worry about having the CPU handle all of the encoding and rendering for the videos. So it's not going to help me too much, but it is going to help with streaming, because streaming is a very, very taxing process on the CPU. So besides that, we also did pick up a Noctua, a Noctua CPU heatsink. Now, basically a heatsink that I was running before was the stock. It wasn't anything too great. It's I just took it off. You can see the thermal paste on the bottom still. It was just generic heatsink for the. I think it came with the 8350. I think it's the one that came with it. And this CPU is actually going to be going into my other machine, which I was streaming from for a little while until I decided just to stick streaming on this one. But regardless, so keep in mind, there's this guy, which fits in there no problem. It fits in the case because I have a really big case. You'll see in a second. But we're going to go to this bad boy. So a size comparison. Yeah. This is far more than you probably need, but it is, my god, is it fucking awesome. Thing is massive, man. And I absolutely love it. My brother actually has the same exact heatsink in his computer, and he couldn't be happier. So we're upgrading a lot of stuff today. Again, we don't need to upgrade the GPU because I actually am happy with the speed it's at now. Probably another year or two I'm going to be upgrading the GPU, but where it is now, it can pretty much run anything. So I will flip the camera around, and I will see you guys inside the machine. Okay, so now we are actually looking inside my case, and it's pretty well stocked, I would say. I mean, there's not too crazy much stuff in here. I'm not running any water cooling or anything like that. It is purely air cooling. I have 2 outs right up here on the very top of the case. I don't think you guys can actually see that, but there's 2 outs. I believe they are 200mm fans, 175 in the back, which is an out, and then one in the front, which is up over here, which is an in, and then 2 more right here, which are ins as well. So it's kind of a diagonal intake system. But the air circulation is pretty good. It runs pretty well. And besides the CPU and GPU, which I mentioned, I have 4 sticks of RAM, so 16 gigs for 4 sticks. I still have a 750 watt power supply, 2 main hard drives, one for just random stuff, one for videos, which is a terabyte, and then one for my OS, which is 250? I think it's 250 gigs. But now what we're going to do is we're going to remove this bad boy, the old CPU, and pop in the new GPU, or the new CPU. And as well install the, here it is, the beast of a heatsink. We're going to install that as well. So I don't know how much editing I'm going to do. If there's a quiet part, I might actually cut that out and just skip ahead to when I'm actually doing something. But hope you guys enjoy this. Like I said, if you want to see more of this kind of thing, let me know. It's just kind of impromptu, and figured it might be kind of a cool thing to do. So let's go ahead and get started here. So the thing I like about AMD, actually, truthfully, I've never actually owned an Intel machine, so I don't know the positives or negatives with an Intel machine. I only know that installing a GPU into an AMD machine is actually very, very easy. Matter of lifting the arm and pop burner out. Let's go ahead and get the new one ready here. Okay, here we go. Stay there, don't fall over now. A lot of thermal compound on there falling off. It's okay. Clean that up later. So swap out these two. And you don't need to be super ginger about handling these things, but make sure the pins that are right here do not get bent, because if they get bent, you're out a lot of money. You're gonna have to buy a new one. Just letting you know. Flip around here. And if this is your first time installing a CPU and you're using an AMD, there's gonna be a little gold, I don't know if you can actually see it on the video there. There's gonna be a gold tab there, gold little triangle signifier. Gonna want to look for it right there. There's like a indentation almost of a triangle, and you want to match those up and just let the pins fall in place. Yep, you'll feel it just fall right in. It's actually really, really nice. Pop the arm down, and you're done. So I'm going to go wash my hands real quick, get this thermal compound off me, and we'll go ahead and start the heatsink installation. Okay, so with this new heatsink, it's actually a little bit more involved than this previous heatsink here. With this little, just standard stock cooler, there's not really much you have to do. You actually, on most motherboards, pre-install, or you have these pre-installed, and they're little clamps or holders for the heatsink to actually clasp onto. So if you see right here, there's a little wiggly thing and little openings where you can actually clasp it in and hold it tight in place against the CPU itself, because you want it as tight against it as you can get, and well as an even distribution of the thermal paste, because that's what's actually going to keep the CPU cool. And without that, you're just going to get a really hot system and potentially either fry your CPU, or just your system will just shut down constantly after a certain amount of time. So you're going to want to make sure everything is okay. And if you do have a system shutdown problem, that's going to be the first thing you're going to want to check, is the actual CPU. Whether you just boot up the system and run a program which will monitor temperatures for a little while and give a report once it crashes, that's going to be one thing you want to consider, as well as just without even thinking, just replace the thermal paste. It's really easy. Just take it off, put some on, and put it back on there. Now you're going to get a better demonstration of, other than what I just said, but still, it's a fairly easy process. So with this new guy, the way it's installed is a little, a little cumbersome to say the least. You got to get these standoffs going on the motherboard, as well as get the screws in place properly. There we go. Now all motherboard screws seem to be pretty standard, so you're gonna, it's probably gonna be a safe bet that it's gonna be okay to screw these all in here. You want to get it as snug as you can. I mean, especially with motherboards, you don't want to torque it really, really hard because you can cause your motherboard to bend, which I've done in the past. Trust me, it's not a fun thing because eventually, if you do torque it hard enough, you'll get metal on metal contact, which, yeah, metal on metal contact is just about as bad as metal and water contact with a computer here. Okay, so let's just hold it up here and get a look at this bad boy. So we probably want to do it this way. Oh yeah, that's plenty of room. Yeah, that's gonna be fine. Cool. Cool. I like it. And this is how you build machines, my friends. You're experimenting and flipping and looking and trying to figure out airflow. Because airflow is your best friend. Oh yeah, there's plenty of room. Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. So, now what we gotta do is we gotta put some thermal paste on there. And that's a kind of debated topic about how much you apply. Where did my thermal paste go? Okay, I found it. Now what I was saying, the point of contention amongst PC builders is that how do you apply it? Some people say do something fancy like do an X, do a swirl, do a huge glob, do a little glob, but the truth is that you want to apply enough thermal paste where you'll get as much coverage as you can without leaking over. Now, leaking over is the hard part. It depends on the size of your CPU, which I think for the most part nowadays is pretty standard. But it depends on the size, what it is, Intel, AMD. It's really, I don't know, it's kind of like what you want or what you think would be good. It's kind of a weird thing to say, but it's the truth. But the best way to think about it is that, like I said, you want to cover as much area as you can without leaking over, and you don't want air pockets, because air pockets create heat. And heat, like I said, is not good for either an automatic shutdown or damage potentially to the system itself. So my rule of thumb is the very center. Do about a pea size. If it's a little under, a little over, you're still in the clear there. As you can see, probably last time, where'd it go? Oh, here. This guy, I probably did a little too much because when I grabbed the sides, it was leaking a little bit, and I got some of my fingers. Well, it's not that big of a deal. If you get a little bit of leakage when you put down the heatsink, don't freak out about it. It's not that big of a deal. But you do want to try and prevent as much leaking as possible. So that's why I say either about the size of a pea or a little under or even just a tad over, you'll still be fine. So let's go ahead and apply some of this stuff. You don't need any more than that. Now I know it's a bit ridiculous that you get a whole tube like this, and now with this GPU, I actually got Noctua's actual thermal paste. So I have two, Arctic and Noctua stuff. So if you get one tube, you're going to be good for a really long time. Don't let it sit around too long, because letting it sit is never a good thing, but I mean, there's not really many places you can use it unless you're remounting a GPU or something into another, I don't even know, another case on it or something. I don't know what you would be doing. But that is really the only time you use it. You don't use it very much. But I guess if you are an IT guy and you're constantly fixing heat sinks or computer repair, then you might go through a lot. But like people like me, who it's once in a blue moon, yeah, you don't really have to worry about it too much. Okay, so I got it in. It took me a little bit longer than I thought it was actually going to. It's actually a pretty hard thing to get in. Now, by no means is this a first heatsink you would want to get, because as you can see, it's just barely fitting in my case here. If we even take a look, I'm probably going to have to remove... No, looks like we might be okay. Oh, hang on. Burp. Not everything was out. Come here. Let's take a look here. Nah, it looks like we can get it in there. Well, maybe not. Now we're good. Yeah, so it's a snug fit, but it's good. And that's basically it. Now I'm not a big cable management guy. I mean, I've cable managed as best as I'm going to. I wasn't going to bother feeding these cables to the back side of the case and popping them up back here. I probably could have, but it's not like I have a clear front anyway. As you can see, it's just a mesh, so it's not that big of a deal. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. That's the installation of the new CPU into the system, which hopefully means better performance with games like Fallout, as well as faster rendering times, potentially, and better streams. Not likely, but we'll see. So anyway, yeah, I'll thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'm going to go install the other CPU into the other system now, and probably sleep the rest of the night. I'll see you guys later. See ya!